Hello, you're welcome to our Tuesday edition of Nigeria Market. And Nigeria Market is an advocacy program of AID. And AID, as you all know, is an ambassador initiative for development and empowerment. The NGO is there to always advocate for what we need to do so that we can improve on our economy. And our topic and focus this morning will be on the Nigerian nation and the economy as it affects the inflation and the insecurity that is already being burning and taking much of our energy in the nation. And with me in the studio is
Chimene Samuel Paul.
yes, Sleta Udam is the host. You're welcome to our edition. So if you are joining us on our social media handle, please we always expect that you make your contributions. I will always say this program is for Nigerians. And when we talk about Nigerians, we're saying that all of us should always join hands to see how we can be able to move this nation forward, especially when it comes to the economy and the market. And also, we're going to have a guest who is also going to join us via our handles. And so I think he's already hooked up, and he's no other person that is a familiar friend to the studio. It's Prince Fansface. I believe he's on. But before we get to him, we would like to open up our discussion. This morning, yes, we're looking at the state of the nation, and as I said earlier, we're talking about insecurity as it's going to affect the inflation occasioned by the impending subsidy removal that is coming. And we are hearing how the government is trying to make provision because you have this data to tell us so that Nigerians will begin to get ready so that they'll be able to make some adjustments when it comes to finances like this. So, what's your take this morning?
Well, thank you, Mr. Sledge, and thanks our viewers that have always been with us. I think this topic is up, and I want everybody who is watching or listening, to take these things seriously. I think sometime in May we discussed something close to this or related to this where I said a sister station and listen where we're coming to the studio. Yeah. And then the guest that day was, for him, it's like a palpable fear. Look, he's having expression of this fear. And the same thing that also happened to me the day we read that the Governors Forum, has approved the fuel price, to be between 380 naira to 402 naira thereabout. And for me, I was like, what is going to happen to Nigerians? Because when the subsidy is still there, we're buying fuel at, let's say, 162 naira. We can see the hardship. Then you are talking of the dollar that is high to a point where you go to buy vegetable or go that we plant in our backyard.
Yeah.
And then you hear, dollar don't rise. Gary became something else. For those of us who are in Abuja or this part of the world, over there in the south, we don't do mudu. It's either Congo or something, or basin of Gary and all that. But for those of us who are familiar with the mudu size of measurement,
Mudu is generally accepted there in the north.
Yeah, in the north. That's why I said south. If you go to south and you're telling them mudu, they don't understand. So I said those of us who are within. Mm-hmm. So you can see that a mudu of Gary now is going for like 500 naira. And if you have a family of 5, that's like a meal, if at all, depending on the size of the family and then those, how they consume. Now, the danger is the insecurity is making farmers not to go to farm because nobody wants to go to farm. Two things will happen is either your crops are destroyed by the Fulani herders that are going with the cows and then they just eat up your crop and they are untouchable. Or you are kidnapped and then ransom is paid and others. So people are afraid of going to the farm. Now, when we don't go to farm, we don't know what will happen, next year, 2022. Unfortunately, the politicians are galvanizing 2023. They have not seen 2022 yet.
Of course. Now, before you go, when you mentioned 2022, it is equivalent that as we are looking at 2020, 2021 is the time that we need to farm so that it can sustain us.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm just doing that base. You know, people are, if in 2021, this is farming season,
you don't farm.
And people don't farm. So what we eat in 2022? 22. That's what happened when in 2020 COVID came.
Yeah. A
lot of persons couldn't go to farm. And then within the heat of the COVID, you know, insecurity again was there. So people are not going to farm. If not, that COVID period would have been the best period for people to go to farm because you are not going out, you're not traveling. So your farm would have been the best place for you to go. But because of the insecurity level, you know, people were not going to the farm. So everybody was at home.
Of course.
Now we are seeing the effect that a mudu of garri now is going for 500 naira. Then we talk about farm what's called rice. Even when we here are promoting the local rice, you know, let's eat what we plant or what we produce. Rice farmers could not also go. You remember what happened? That was in Zamfara, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, where farmers were beheaded. So all these things happened, and the government, you know, they say they are trying.
Yeah.
So let's give it to them that they are trying.
Yeah.
All right. So
that
the government
happens in Borno. Percent increase in everything that has to do with the economy today. So therefore, there's that pending fear, there's that perceived fear that inflation will actually rise and it will affect on our economy and on our market. And that is the reason why Nigerian market has decided to bring this topic, and so that we want to see how we can discuss and be able to look at the possible remedies and be able to warn our listeners and Nigerians that to begin to prepare so that they are not taken unawares, and so that when they know what to do, they'll be able to meet up with the demand that's going to come with that. But as I said earlier, we will have a guest who is also going to weigh into it and give us his own point of view. And he's not a person, he's a friend to this studio. He has been here before, but today we're connecting him via our Twitter handle. So sorry, say Twitter handle. Our social media.
Not that fair. We're
not using Twitter, sir. So he's not a person that I want him to join us. He's no other person than Prince Fanface. I think if he's on, I believe the network can allow him to say one or two things. Fanface, you're welcome to the program this morning. All right, we're expecting if you get it. I think he may also have something to do. But then generally, we're looking at insecurity. And I always like people to understand that insecurity may not necessarily carry guns. Even when people are hungry. Yes, Mr. Fanface, you're even driving. I hope your you can have a focus on what we are discussing this morning.
Yeah, of course. I am.
All right, welcome. Yeah, we're looking at the nation and the economy today, and as regards to the insecurity and the impending fuel subsidy that is coming up, and we're looking at the perceived increase, the effect that if this subsidy is going to be removed, how is it going to affect the economy and the market generally? What's your take as regards to this issue today?
Well, first we need to understand that Nigeria's price structure is connected to government policy, and implementation. If the government begins to mute the idea to want to remove fuel subsidy, which means that we're going to be buying, like you mentioned in your introduction, that fuel will begin to get to the amount of almost 300 and something naira or more. What it simply means is that the transporters will increase their transport fares.
Of course.
So goods and services will automatically take that effect, because those who will transport their goods, let's say foodstuff, for instance, we have to transport it through the available means of transportation, which is the public transportation.
Of course.
And if that goes up, it increases the cost of transporting these goods to the market. And so the buyer, the consumer, will not become the one who carries the load of everybody.
Of course.
And I always say to people that those who don't have what they produce or what they sell are the ones who will always pay for those who consume. Which means that for somebody who does not have any business, who does not have any product he's selling, who does not have anything, he will be the one that will be paying for the rich man, the middle class, and the poor man. Because all of them have something they are producing or they are selling, so they transfer the cost, their own cost, to the consumer.
Yeah.
And so food inflation will increase. Now, for those who are into business or the entrepreneurs, this is also an opportunity to stock up grains, especially grains. If you have enough of it now left, what will happen is that you'll be able to have enough to have a kill in the interim. That you have a kill in the interim once you're able to stock up enough for the period. So insecurity and the removal of subsidy will have adverse effects on our price inflation.
Yes.
We must come to terms with this. There is a government all over, like America, for instance. America subsidizes farmers.
Okay, Fireface, quickly because of time. Are you with me? You actually had analyzed what will happen, but we are trying to look at the how we can mitigate this, even if we know that it's going to pending. What exactly, in few words, because of time, what exactly does you mean? You expect that common man that you said is going to carry the burden of everybody that is the producer and the seller? What does he need to do at this point in time? And what does government itself at this point in time? Because you mentioned transportation, and that's where the problem is, because everything will tie down on transportation. What exactly government should do at this point in time to see how they can give us that palliative that can be able to do? We know they are going to change its price.
Okay, first the man who is the consumer must now find a way to have something he's also selling, where the transfer of cost will get into. Now,
Yes,
someone who doesn't have anything to sell should also be prepared to cut his coats in such a way that his consumption rate is at par or lower than his income rate. Because if he's not making enough money and he's only consuming, it means that very soon he will beg. And even in begging, you will not even have people that will give, because everybody will want to be able to recycle and upcycle what they have. People will not have wastage any longer. For the government part, what government needs to do is to cushion this effect. How do they do it? Government can provide soft loans for transporters to buy more vehicles so that they reduce their cost for the transport fare. Government will also begin to give them either buses or vehicles so that they bring those interventions that will help these transporters to reduce their costs. Because if they buy fuel 300 or something, I just bought fuel today now, and I spent almost 12,000 naira to fill my tank. Now, my thinking is that if this is a transport vehicle it means that I will transfer my cost to my passengers. So government can, yes, they don't want to keep the subsidy because it's not sustainable, but the amount of money that will be saved from the fuel subsidy, what are we going to do with that money? Do we create enabling environment more for people to thrive, for businesses to grow? Should we give tax rebates, so that people can set up more businesses? Should we also, as a matter of fact, ensure that our roads are motorable? Then there are feeder roads for the farmers so that they can easily bring their goods and services to the main city.
Definitely,
More people?
Definitely, you have hit the point. You've made your point very clearly, and I want to appreciate you because of the time here in the studio. We want to always I ask that each time we have time like this, you always weigh on our point. So we want to begin to say thank you very much, Mr. Fineface, and we're going to look at those points you've raised because of time. Yes, Mr. Fineface.
Well, I'm always available. I'm even in the studio with you guys.
Yes, you are, because we can see you. You're welcome. Thank you very much. So yes, Mr. Fineface.
But let him not go yet.
He's still always going to listen. Just as you just hook up as we follow up and run up the program, he has mentioned very, very vital, remedies, because those are the issues that we are discussing in the studio. That the burden that this fuel subsidy is going to create is going to be fall on someone who is idle. And so, if you are idle out there, we are saying that you must look of something to do so that you will not carry the burden. And for the government aspect, government should begin to see how it can give soft loan to people, to project, to get their own buses. People will not use, Fineface will not use his own vehicle. He will decide to join the bus, and that will reduce the cost of movement within the city center. So it's on that note, I would like to see how we can actually also make contribution based on his own AP this morning.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fineface or Prince Fineface. Okay, these are laudable points, like you've just said. But I want to say something. The first thing I think the government will do is to see that they bring this insecurity thing to a halt. Government must, because if you give soft loan, to an SME, maybe he puts it in business. The business is not secure because he's afraid in his area kidnappers. In Nigeria, you are not a threat. And when you get this money, a poor man that suddenly opens a big shop because government has given him, or her an pension. So it is not a threat to tackle. Yes. All these solutions by government will not work. You give a transfer, you provide them vehicles. Which road would they apply? Because they are afraid, not even the road being all right. If the road is not bad, maybe as a result of poor road, the drivers can maneuver. Okay. But when they are not sure. Now, for instance, just tell your friend you want to go to Lagos. You want to pose. But they are talking about the other. So government must stand, all right. Then the safety of Nigerians cannot be guaranteed. That's why you can't collect money now and put in farm, and then you get back anything, because maybe you go and plant granite or you plant beans. What happens? Exactly. What happens? The herders carry their cows and enter there. You plant cassava, they help you graze the cassava, and nobody wants to say anything about that. So government must do that, so that when insecurity is the key, if you must control these things. Yes. All right. So when you don't control these things, of course, there's no way you can bring the people, anything. So anything you are just giving them. Talking about palliatives, we said here, government has no business in running business. If you bring government buses today, I bet you in 2 years, you can't see them in shape, because one, even when you give it to people, except they are bringing those buses and give to private people to manage.
I think
But
that's
if
the best way.
okay, but if you give them to manage and the road is not safe, so those things. Now, the other thing I should also say, the roads are good, but if you have the heavy duties on the roads will also get bad. So the government will also look inward again in the rail projects and see how we can have a lot of these rail stations or railways, come on board so that those heavy duties
within the city.
Within the city, so that the transportation things, food, if food is carried within the rail, I think is cheaper. All right, so government will now look at those railway thing and improve on it.
So finally, we will, because of time, we will look at what you have actually said. We want to believe that apart from the insecurity and what government is a two-way traffic that government need to look at. As he's looking at the insecurity issue, they're also looking at how he can provide those soft loans and palliatives that can be able to cushion this effect. And so we'll look at it in two dimensions. It may not actually give one direction, or let us look at it.
Yes.
So government should look at the insecurity issue. I believe government is also saying that the insecurity, most especially the headers, I think they are looking for how they can get ranches for them. And that's the reason why the southern governors are always on the board again, trying to say, oh, there's no open grazing, and let government see how ranches can be built for these headers so that they can calm their animals and feed them. So that
the president have not said. The president said he has authorized the attorney general to go back to the grazing route.
Even with that, the grazing may not be the same again as of those days.
Okay, fine.
So we may not just. Someone says, assuming that grazing route, a palace is built on that route, will you go and tell the?
No, that's why the government need to review. The federal government, I will expect that the government should review, because the utterance of the president is giving morale to the Meji alert to say, no, we must continue to graze.
There's no perfect law. As soon as you make a law which is not going well, I think there's need for review, just like
definitely.
So definitely, I think
that's the body language of
the president will look at these demands and see to take the appropriate steps so that we can always have a common ground where all of us can trade together and live in peace and make progress, because that is the ultimate goal for this government. So we want to continue to encourage those of us joining us on our social media handle. We want to ask that you make your inputs, make your contributions, so that we can also move this program on. So Francis, you're still there. We want to believe that we've just asked that government, even though government is making input, what will they do, especially to curb this issue of insecurity that is actually the major problem that we are facing right now?
Well, you see, if government is sincere, insecurity is something that can be handled. First, we need to begin to look at how we can embrace community policing. Nigeria is supposed to be a federation, which means that every state is supposed to be autonomous, governing itself, and at the end of the day, giving some form of independence to the central. So we can actually begin to apply restructuring to ensure that we have all our federating units functioning as federating units. If you go to America, every state operates their own kind of laws. Yes, there's a federal law. When it comes to that, there's that need for federal law to come with it. So let's take away this aspect of federal policing, federal security structure. The military, yes, of course, we can give to the federal, but let's have state policing so that we can improve our security architecture within and around the state level, which means that good neighborliness come into play, community policing come into play, then there will be local intelligence that will help in ensuring that things are there. Then it's not just only providing the preventive measures by government. Government needs to create an enabling environment for people to pursue happiness. Like we find in America, the pursuit of happiness is there. So the enabling environment. So if you have an idea,
sorry, Francis, I think we had a governor who created the ministry or office of happiness and enjoyment or something.
Okay, yeah, some time ago, but it was not followed through effectively. So government can create the enabling environment.
You support that kind of initiative?
No, I don't support that creation of happiness. But what I support is the enabling environment.
What about the smoke infrastructure?
Those are limiting strategies. Somebody like you now, you guys in your studio now, government should be able to create an enabling environment. We want to ensure that you have light to function, that the road to your office is well tagged, that you're not unnecessarily being taxed, overly taxed, that denies you the opportunity to function effectively. Once there's an enabling environment that's created, what it does is that it creates more employment opportunity. Good jobs will be created. More people will be gainfully employed. Then less crime will be seen. Because when people are gainfully employed and engaged, they don't think of doing evil. The idle shop is the devil's workshop. The idle mind is the devil's workshop. So if the mind is busy productively, things will get better. So if government has done that, the next thing we'll begin to do, families need to begin to reorient themselves and ensuring that our value system is improved upon, and we have godly virtues that we can begin to use as a basis. I grew up in a family where my late dad would always sing this song to us. If at work or if at play, always speak the truth. Many are the labors of the boy who wants to become a clever man. So we work hard to make money. We didn't just look forward to want to make money just by any means any possible. When people come with wealth, we should ask questions. If they can't explain, then we should be able to manage them. So if we introduce the system of, identify, banish, and exile, you name, shame, and banish, then people will not be getting into crimes and believe that they can come back to society and feel good. Somebody today finished school.
I'm very sorry because of time. We understand you have all it takes to actually give us, but because of time, we also want to appreciate you from your input, your in-depth in this discussion. I always want to say that you are always standing by each time we need you to make your point clear to Nigerians. And I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning.
For the good of nationhood. We must always do for the good of nationhood.
All right, thank you very much. You're welcome. So, because of time, we'll be able to allow Fianceways to leave for now. So, he has mentioned that, but then we want to directly, because of time we're leaving, we're going to direct his points to the inflation issue that we know is pending, because that is exactly why we are discussing this morning, because the inflation issue will definitely rise based on all these indices that have been raised this morning.
Well, I think it's just a counsel or an advice to the viewers. Please just listen to us if you are connecting to this program. Advise your friends, tell people about it. Inflation will come. Nigerians need to tighten up. So if you are the type that you spend what is not necessary, okay, please begin to save. It is not a prophet of doom, but this is the fact that look, you need to begin to eat one and keep one. So we don't know when it will come. All right, so let's be prepared. Let's begin to put our house in order. It is not time, let me buy this one and keep when you don't need it. No, please, at every time, buy what you need and not what you want. All right, so that's is how far we can go.
This morning. Thank you very much. So just to add a few, saying you should spend below your income, not above your income. And if you understand this principle, I think you can be able to tackle the inflation that is coming this morning. So as we have always said, join us in our discussion, make your engagement, like our page, and continue to make your contribution so that we can move our nation forward as regards to economy and the market. Mr. Fanface, once again, we're saying thank you very much for joining us, and we're saying
bye, Nigeria.
He has to tell them,
yes,
bye
Nigeria to grow Nigeria. Thank you.
All right, so let's now in the studio we have to them, but somebody corrected that we should say buy Nigeria to grow Nigeria, so that the Nigeria slang we should just leave the Nigerian.
Okay, the slang is what someone is only having problem. We should call Nigeria instead of Nigeria.
Buy Nigeria to grow Nigeria.
Okay, all right, let's take it together.
Buy Nigeria to grow Nigeria. Thank you.
God bless you.